Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue this Hope Day Wednesday. Zanele Hlatshwayo will be raising funds and awareness about depression and suicide. To do that, she will run and complete 18 races between January and June this year. Her goal is to raise 180,000 for the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. This is after she lost her father, who committed suicide as a way of dealing with her pain. Now she joins us this morning to share her experience with us and together with Nkini Phasha, who is a spokesperson for the South African Depression and Anxiety Group.
I love running. I run 4 to 5 times a week. I started running 4 years ago in my neighborhood, and I soon realized that running alleviated the stress and anxiety that I had consumed in my life. More so, it made me realize how strong I am. Running or training for a marathon is not easy. But the glory of the finish line surpasses the pain I feel because I always win when I complete a training session. I lost my dad in 2008. He was my pillar, my strength. Papa was my hero. June 16 has never been the same since 2008. For me, it was a day where a part of me left with him. There was nothing to celebrate because my hero had killed himself. I didn't know what to deal with first, the fact that he died or how he died. It was a double-edged sword. The stigma attached to depression and suicide left me feeling alone in the darkest hour of my life. Dealing with the fact that my dad killed himself was prolonged because I couldn't speak about it. It was too painful to speak about it, especially at home. I decided to rise up and do something, not just for myself and my family, but for you. Yes, we are ashamed of depression and suicide in our society, but that needs to stop. Starting on January, I'll be running 18 races and raising funds and awareness about this initiative. My 18th race, which is 160 kilometers, will take place on the 27th of July, 2018. Rise up for yourself, for a father, a sister, a neighbor, and follow my running journey as I raise funds to fight against depression and suicide.
Well, she joins us this morning here on the show, and you can be part of our conversation as well by giving us a call on 01144711742 or 1620. Good morning, Zanele, and thanks very much for joining us. That's a beautiful narration of the work that you're going to be doing. 10 years ago, you lost your father. When you go back to that moment, and what inspired you to do what you want to do this year?
For me, it's about redefining his legacy. My father was an amazing father, not only to me, but my siblings, to my nieces and nephews and cousins. And for me, it's about not defining who he was based on how he died, but based on the person that he was. And to really demystify what depression and suicide is about, especially in the Black communities, where people are still ashamed of talking about it. The campaign that I've been running in the last 2 weeks is all based on that, on talking about depression and suicide, and if people are suicidal, because there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's all about finding the right support and literally trying to help other people in dealing with depression and suicide.
Okay, when did you come to that place of realization to say it's a struggle that he had, it is depression, it's just not how he died, and therefore let me understand what the challenge or what he went through? When did you come to the realization of that?
With my dad, he was diagnosed quite late, and I think he was quite deep into the depression. And at the time, I didn't know about it. As a family, we also didn't know about it, and that subsequently, we didn't really offer him the right support that he needed at the time. And when he took his life, I wanted to find out more about it because I saw the pain. I saw him go through, the emotions, and I always say to people that I literally saw him slip away from us as a family and just being disinterested in what he liked. So for me, I realized that as a family, for instance, we didn't want to talk about it. In the community, people didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't okay with saying that my dad actually committed suicide. And in some instances, I would even say, my dad was sick. And then I realized that I can't lie anymore about it, because I need to raise awareness about it. And secondly, like I mentioned, I need to redefine my father's legacy, because my dad was an amazing man. He was there throughout all my life milestones. He was there at parents' meetings. I always say to my friends, my father even took me to the salon, so that's the dad that I had. And I then made a decision that I need to, rise, and this is the year that I've made a decision to actually rise up, to create awareness about depression and create awareness about suicide and how people should deal with it. Because I think that is the problem in the South African context. It's not diagnosed properly, people don't know how to offer the right support, and eventually the person that's suffering from it, they actually feel alone.
Nkini, you work with the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. This is a story of a lot of families, but it takes a lot of courage and purpose to get to a place of saying, I'm going to do something about it. Suicide in South Africa, especially in families, just how we try and deal with it, and the lack of understanding around it.
There is, Penny, if we go back, there's an idiom in Sepedi that says, "Muipulai khalelu," loosely translated, it means that if somebody takes away their lives, they're not worthy to be mourned. So those are just some of the things that actually fuel, the stigma that is associated with suicide. And I mean, it's a national crisis, and in fact, it's a global crisis. I mean, WHO, which is the World Health Organization, actually states that depression and associated conditions and obviously the severe consequence, which is suicide, is actually one of the leading causes, of mortality globally. So we are sitting with a huge crisis, but unfortunately, there is still a huge sense of shame, that is associated with suicide specifically. Families try not to talk about it. They want to just hide it away, sweep it under the carpet, because they fear that actually they're going to be judged. They fear that all these terrible words that are used are now actually then being going to be passed on to them. So people don't feel comfortable talking about it. And I think Zanele's initiative, I mean, it's highly commendable. We need these individuals within communities that actually can stand up and join the this fight.
Especially because it's her father. It's it's someone who's a position of leadership in her family. Someone would say, oh, if it was your mom, we can all understand. It's a girl thing, do that. The importance of that, for a lot of children who find themselves in a situation like that every day in our country, what is your message to them?
If someone loses their parent or somebody that they looked up to, I think in many instances the first emotion that people go through is shock. And it's important to go through, the mourning process and really try to understand what happened. Because in many instances, especially the family that's left behind, you left behind to pick up the pieces. You left behind to support the rest of the family. And for me personally, it actually took long for me to deal with, the loss of my dad, because I was the eldest of the 3 children. I had to support my family and make sure that my younger siblings are fine. And it's okay to go through those emotions. I mean, I'm still going through that. And I think the main purpose of the campaign is for me to also go through the healing process, and to make people aware that, if you go through something like that, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people go through that. But what's important is that we need to speak up about it, and we need to support one another. In the last 2 weeks, I launched the project 2 weeks ago. There's been an overwhelming response where people are telling me their own stories, where I'm getting messages on social media, and this is a realization that there is a lot of people that are suffering or that have lost their loved ones. And the purpose of the campaign is for people to speak up. I mean, one of the things that we want to do with the team is to actually shoot other stories and record other stories where people tell their own stories about about depression, if they were suicidal, how did they deal with it? Because a message of hope is required out there. A lot of people are suffering and a lot of people are hurting, and it's high time now that we put a face to a name, and to put a story to
so
a
it's not
face
just
as well.
numbers. It's it's human beings. It's real lives.
Exactly.
That have been affected.
Yeah.
Nkini, I mean, the challenges around just getting access to getting help in the country. We don't have enough psychiatrists. At some point, the suicide line was almost shut down. You know, SADC itself, it's a non-profit organization. Now I'm speaking like someone who supports SADC because I do.
You do.
But the
absolutely,
realities of it is that's what we're faced with as a country. But
It is-
people need help. So initiative like this, how does it help SADC?
Indeed. I mean, raising funds, you know, to support the work that we do as a South African Depression and Anxiety Group goes a long way. You know, you mentioned the suicide helpline. I mean, we're on the verge, you know, of actually shutting down the, you know, the group because of lack of funding. You know, I mean, there is a huge amount of work that we do that requires financial resources. You know, we run a call center, a contact center that we run from, you know, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week, you know, and we've got toll-free lines, and those lines needs to be paid.
They need to be paid. That's the reality.
This is
of,
the reality.
That's the reality of our
You know,
country because
exactly.
you sometimes you're like, I just want to call, somebody must just answer on the other
Exactly.
side.
And Penny, you know what? Let's make it real. It's 1 in 3. As of sitting like this, one of us actually suffers from a type of a mental disorder. And that's the reality in South Africa. And I don't understand, you know, why is it that you look at our government, you look at, you know, corporate South Africa, and I'm challenging. As much as now Zanele, as an individual, she's standing up to say, I can do something tangible, something that actually can make a difference. And I'm challenging corporate South Africa. I'm challenging, you know, our government to say, this is a huge, it's a time bomb. We are sitting with a time bomb on our hands, and it's going to end up as a national catastrophe.
Zanele, how can people help? I can't run, but I'm rising up with you.
So people can donate, and I've actually started a donation page. People can go to www.backupbuddy.co.za/rise18, and people must just contact me on my Facebook pages. There's also Rise 18 Facebook pages. People must come up and tell their own stories. I would appreciate for corporates as well to come and support the 18th race, which is a 160 kilometers race.